there also needs to be wisdom and discernment in what we call ministry. Just because someone wants to serve doesn't mean every job is necessary.
That comment right there is
Mhm.
everything that our entire episode was about. It took almost 100,000 views for someone to say that.
Yeah.
So there's a less than 1% got it. Hey, welcome to the Eyes on Jesus podcast with Drew and Tim. We're so thankful that you're joining us today, whether it be on YouTube or whether it be on Spotify or whatever platform you're joining us. We really appreciate the time. Tim, we've got an awesome episode. We're breaking down, well, basically a clip that we sent out, and holy cow, like tens of thousands of views. We're up to like 62,000 views on TikTok.
Yeah.
Another like 30,000 on Instagram. And it turns out a lot of people really love the parking lot and really love their volunteers. And I think there's some good to that. And we'll dive into that today. But certainly we want to respond to the reaction of a clip that we put out, and it went it went a little haywire. But anyways, but before we get that, why don't you update on everybody on how you are, on the weather in Arizona, and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah, no, we're good. If it's Friday, we're recording. It's 67 out, which is nice, right? But then next Friday, just 7 days away, it's supposed to be 100. So a huge shift from the course of a week. And so here in Arizona, once that happens, you pretty much think that this will be the last time we hit the 60s until probably late October, November. So we have to hunker down for the long haul. But hey, we bought a hot tub, so we're excited about that. Spending
That's good.
a lot of evenings in there. And I know my son's like, why are you buying it when it's going to get over the hundreds? And I was like, well, we just turn it off and it'll become just a pool. So
we're going to leave it unplugged forever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You could use it as a cold plunge.
Yeah,
perfect.
Exactly.
It's perfect.
So how about you? You got a lot of construction going on, a lot of busyness?
Yeah, a lot of construction going on, man. Yes Church is exploding. We are now at 23 weeks of 100% retention, 100% return on first-time guest. 23 weeks. I've never in my life experienced what's happening. I've experienced growth. I've experienced a lot of people showing up for the first time. I've never experienced so many people falling in love so quickly with a community and a church, and it has just been awesome. So our baby infant room has gone from no babies to 8. Our kids ministry is out of control. We, 2 years ago, it was my 2 kids. That was it. It was like my 2 kids 2 years ago, and we're now starting to approach the 30s, and it's really wild. We've got a lot of people bought in. It's taking a lot of hands to do what we're doing. We're ripping down walls. We've extended our worship center. We've created new rooms. We've done so much painting. And this week, the floors are going in. And that's the biggest part of this, 7,000 square feet of flooring. It's the most expensive part of this. So we're wanting it to go really well. We're believing and praying so hard for the people that are installing, because we just want it to be not perfect as a thing that everybody's chasing, but we just want it to be really beautiful and really bless everyone that's sown into the ministry. So we're excited. We're really excited. We're expecting Easter to be the largest service that we've ever had. And then the Sunday after Easter, we have baptisms. The Sunday after that, we have graduation recognition. We have 24 seniors, man. 24 seniors.
Awesome.
It's insane. So it's wild. It's a really crazy time. And in the midst of all of that, I keep getting these notifications on my phone that are so-and-so commented, so-and-so responded, so-and-so tagged you, so-and-so sent you a DM, so-and-so shared this. And it all comes back to one video. So can I just say what I said on the clip?
Yeah, no, we need to give people context for maybe it's your first time of what that clip was, what our heart behind it was. And here's the thing. If you listen to the entire episod, you get it. But if you only listen to the 60-second clip that's going around, you might think what some of these comments thought.
Yeah, the goal. So whenever we're doing these episodes and we get into church tactics, okay, it's not coming from a place of, oh, we hate the church. We certainly love the church. We've devoted our lives to it. But it does come from a place of not just our experience, but seeing what's happening, trends that are happening. We're not just involved in our own church, we're involved in many churches. We have many friends that are leaders at other churches. We have many different connections at different churches. And so we're constantly evaluating what other people are doing. There's good that comes with that. There's some tension that comes with that because we don't agree with everything that's happening in the American church. So when we speak to something, it's not coming from a place of, well, this is a blanket statement and this should fit every single situation. And we're not coming from a place of, well, like you suck and we've got it all figured out. Because I'll tell you right now, I could rip my own church apart on this podcast in a heartbeat. And some episodes I do.
Yeah.
Like, this is how we operate, right? So that being said, I made a comment in a 50-minute episode. I made a comment where I said, if your church is running 100 people, now that's very, very important because a lot of people miss that. But I said, if your church is running 100 people, essentially, you don't need a parking lot team. And what I was trying to basically say in context of the episode is this copy and paste ministry where we watch these big churches who have parking lot teams, production teams, worship teams, guest experience volunteers, and they have all the layout. We go, oh, that's how we're supposed to do church. That's how we're supposed to grow. And what I'm saying is, if you have 100 people, I'm not saying that there's no value in a parking lot team. I'm saying I don't think you should have one because I think your leader should figure out better ways for people to serve, more important ways for people to serve. Now, that's my opinion. Okay, that's my opinion. You can disagree. That's fine to disagree. But from what I see, there's a lot of churches that are putting up tents, putting out flags, putting on orange vests, spending money, spending time, spending energy and service towards something that they really don't even know why they're doing it. They just know that they've seen other people be successful in it. So that was my heart behind it. That was the goal. The 60-second clip that we put out, it was to build some tension. We did want you to kind of like, how it is on social media. There's a little game you play. We did want you to have an opinion over it. We, of course, wanted you to go get context. Not a lot of people did. No. And here's what I'll say, man. Some people had some really good points.
Yeah.
Like some people really did have some good points. And I love that. Like, I love being challenged. It gives me an opportunity to think. And I'll tell you, let me just, here's where I was wrong. Let me start there with one. There was a guy in New Jersey. Did you see the comment from the guy in New Jersey? I think it was on Instagram.
Was it a downtown, like the church's downtown?
Yeah, that guy. So his church is small, but they've had a lot of break-ins in their area where they do church. And so their parking lot team is also like a security team. And their team essentially makes sure that cars don't get like vandalized. Bro, yeah. You need a parking lot team. So if you take the blanket statement of, if your church is 100 people, you don't need a parking lot team, and you give no context to it, well, then yes, like you're right and I'm wrong.
Yeah.
In the context of what I'm saying, you have seen that there's value to your people in this context of cars being vandalized. Therefore, you have a team. I'm in full agreement with that. I wanted to make sure we were clear on the value. So anyways, some comments were better than others. That was one that I immediately was like, hey, really good point based on the 60-second clip. But what were some comments? What were some comments for you that,
well, yeah, there were some comments we're not going to talk about that I just automatically deleted that were nasty.
Some people got real ugly, bro.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It's so hard on social media because we do a lot of clips on this podcast, a lot of good discipleship, Bible-based, clips. I mean, our entire episodes are that way as well. But like when you see a clip, it's supposed to be like, all right, who are these guys? Who's this podcast? Maybe I want to hear more. And I'd say less than 1% of our comments actually listen to the full episode. That's just how it is. But
Right.
also the clips are designed to do that. And so you can't, a lot of people are like, well, you chose this clip to put online. It's like, we did, because, hey, look what happened. And that's the game we're playing, is that social media should propel you to learn more about what's happening from this small clip. You know, that's why we do sermon clips. We want you to go hear the whole sermon, but also there's value in the one clip if that's all you hear. And there was a lot of comments that were just all over the place, and we kind of categorized them into different themes here. And so I also talked about in the clip about, you know, announcers in the lobby, how no one needs that. And I'd say overwhelmingly people are
right on with that.
Yeah. People agree we don't need that. And so that was one of the
everyone
things.
everyone liked you a lot, and everyone was pretty upset.
The parking lot is the golden cow that we're not ready to give up yet. So.
We're not ready to get rid of the parking lot. Listen, we've got to know where the spaces are. How will we know where the spaces are if you do not show me where they are?
Exactly.
Hey, totally. Totally get it.
It's one of the things, like, you know, how protective are we of this American church model? And again, our point was go before God in prayer and ask him, is this something our church should be doing? Totally. And so we'll hit that here as we go through the comments. Some of the comments were very much about context matters. And you talked about that with the New Jersey comment. Someone said, if you have 600 to 700 people showing up at multiple services with a team that is trained and loves on the parking lot team and people coming in and directs flow, that's amazing. It works for them. Absolutely. Yep. Again, we said 100 people.
And I think that's that's the backstory, right? Like you're talking to a guy who did parking lot team at Elevation, guest experience at Elevation, Matthews campus, over, you know, nearly 4,000 people, 5 services a week. So totally understand the value of a parking lot team when you start getting to that level. Absolutely.
Yeah. Someone said churches with 100 people need solid security just as much as those with 1,000. There are weird people out there, and most of them are looking for smaller churches with no security. But then have a security team. Well, again, like, know where your church is located, and if security is an issue, like, you should solidify that team. It doesn't mean you necessarily need people with orange vests that aren't trained in security. Just have a security person outside in that case.
Yeah, park. Get an off-duty cop to come put his, you know, cop car out front.
Yeah. Last Sunday was my first time helping in the parking lot. I saw someone break down in tears when I waved at them. They said they weren't even going to come to church, but that small wave and smile felt like God saw them. Don't minimize ministry you don't understand. Awesome.
That's a fantastic story. I love it.
Love that. But
keep waving at people, keep loving on people. Absolutely.
Exactly. And not all churches are laid out the same. I'd rather have someone greet me before I ever get out of my car than be ignored all the way to the sanctuary. Okay.
Totally. Yep. Valid. I mean, again, a lot of these people, that like had the tone of like, screw you. We would go, no, I totally agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah.
If you listen to the episode, you would have realized that.
This was not as pleasant. Imagine worshiping together, hearing the word of God, growing in the Lord, and being impacted by community, and then going online to bash another church's parking volunteers. This is my church. We love each other and serve together joyfully. You don't have to understand it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you know, this is social media. This is how it works. You know, you're going to get, you know, bash another church. It's like, yeah, come on. You know, that's not the goal.
Another theme was that serving is beautiful, even in small tasks. Someone said, people want to serve, so the church provides ways for them to do that and help others. That's beautiful. Stop criticizing people's willingness to be helpful. Again, we're not like, there is so much to do in church, right? Yeah. It's kind of saying like, well, everyone wants to serve. We need to create these things for them to serve in. You don't. Yeah. There are many ways that people can serve. That doesn't have to be parking lot or whatever thing you want to throw at a church to add on to the ministries. Like, someone said, giving people an opportunity to serve in the house of God is a blessing to them and others. Why mock it? We're not mocking it. It's amazing.
So let me address that. So as a lead pastor, here's the tension. And this is really, like, I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but this is really the angle that I was trying to do. And if I didn't communicate that clearly in a 60-second clip, my apologies, because I do feel like it came across in the episode though. Everyone needs an opportunity to serve, and we want to give them an opportunity to serve. Absolutely. As it focuses around the vision of the church, as it pertains in alignment to the vision of the church. What I mean by that is, if we had someone come up to me right now and go, hey, I'm really good at twirling flags. I'm like the best. I do it for my color guard and marching band. I'm so good at it. I would like to do a dance with flags, as a special Easter tribute. 100% my answer is no. Not because I don't think they're good at flag flipping and twirling, and not because I don't think that there's a possibility it would bless someone. That's not it either. And it's not that I don't want her stepping into that area of serving. It's that right now, I know the pulse of our church, where our church is sitting, and I know from a worship standpoint, the community we have, what we've built, and what our vision is and style is in that way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If one day it evolves to someone doing a moment with a flag, she'll be the first phone call. But
Right.
right now we're not there.
Mm-hmm.
My answer is no, but then I'm going to go, all right, so you're really good at the flag twirling. What else are you good at? What are some other moments? What are some other passions you have? What are some other gifts you have? Like, we're going to find a place for you to serve.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, if you don't say no to something, then what you do is you get really thin teams with no clear vision of why they're doing what they're doing, and a lot of people running in different directions. So that's when you get a church. And I'll just give you an example of a church that literally I could throw a baseball and hit right now from where I'm sitting. Okay. There's a church locally, not knocking the church. There's a church locally that does contemporary worship. Okay. They also still do handbells. They have like a handbell team. Okay. So they do contemporary modern worship, Brandon Lake. Then they do handbells. Some Sundays they have like a children's thing in their service. Sometimes they don't. Outside, they have a parking lot team. You know who the parking lot team is? Two people. It's two people. And if one of those people's gone, it's one person. And if both of them are gone, they don't have a team. Why? Because they're not a large enough church. And so all their teams are now really thin. So they need help in youth ministry. They don't have very many kids, but they need help in youth ministry, but they don't get help in youth ministry. But you have two people standing outside doing parking lot that could go help with youth. So we're thin in youth. We're thin in guest experience. We're thin with ushers. We're thin on the parking lot team. We're thin in worship. We're thin with handbells. Actually, they got a good handbell team. We're thin over here with who can do this. We're thin with people during the week that can do this, that can keep the church up to date. We're thin with our landscaping team. We're thin in all these places. Why? Well, because we want to give everybody an opportunity to serve. Cool. Let's narrow that focus. Let's get 2 or 3 really solid teams. And what you'll learn is that they will then bring leaders in, and then you can expand to other things. So that's the big deal. It's not that we don't want somebody to step into their purpose. It's that we want to make sure that the church is unified in alignment with the vision and where they're headed.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I think, again, asking the why question, why do we do what we do, is what we're saying here. And we're talking to leaders. And so when we have a comment like, stop tearing down churches, focus on Jesus and love your neighbor, it's like, our podcast is eyes on Jesus. Like, we want to focus on Jesus. And the only reason we critique the church is because the American church model is so desensitized to when a move of God happens and the presence of God. It's just about program. And as long as we can get your butt in a seat for an hour and that you give, then we're good. We did our thing. Forget discipleship and groups and just add on to the ministries until we can grow and get a number that we deem as success. That's not what we consider to be a church full of disciples that are modeling the Bible and focused on Jesus. And so definitely not tearing down the church, but hey, some things in the American church needs to be challenged. And we saw from this clip that when you start challenging people's comfort and what they're used to in church, then you start getting the feedback of like, oh, how dare you, right? Instead of like, let's see it for what it is. This American church is unique in the world. Like, what we have and what we offer people in the term of comfort is a very unique in places that are persecuted. And so we have to keep that focus too. And someone said, maybe you should, nitpicking volunteers. We're not nitpicking volunteers. We are challenging leaders. So it's not, like, if you're volunteering, like, amen, you should be volunteering somewhere. But the leaders that are putting you in these positions are the ones we want them to ask the question, is this what God has for us and our church? And then create your teams from that.
Right. Well, heck, the title of the whole episode was manipulation versus sanctification.
Right.
Like we told you right there in the title, like we're trying to decipher and discern here. What are we just using because it works? What are we like, listen, it's a thin line. It's a really thin line.
Yeah.
And you can manipulate someone who is vulnerable and desperate if you're not careful. And your way of doing that, you'll justify it because you'll go, no. This is what, this is what we do, or this is how. You just got to be really careful. And so that's what we're challenging, is that we want to make sure, let's pray about it. Let's make sure God's calling us to it. Let's make sure that this is in the way of sanctification. This is in the way of discipleship. This isn't in the way of gimmicky, passionate, emotion-driven manipulation, so that we can sell you this Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. And here's some good comments. Ready for some good comments?
Let's hear some good ones. Yeah.
So the theme of these comments are we replacing presence with performance? Someone said, churches that do these kinds of things, it's because they have no spiritual encounters. If the Holy Spirit was in the room, they wouldn't need the hype.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't blanket statement they have no spiritual encounters, but what they're saying is, like, you don't need the hype when you truly are ushering people into the presence of God and there's life transformation happening.
Right.
And you can have both, but make sure that this is the priority. Like, if you're going to have all the other frivolous stuff and coffee and parking lot, like, there better be encounters too with the living God.
Yep. And then you had modern church as a business, and it's hard to watch.
Yep.
Right. And look, it's a nonprofit. It's an organization. So it's an organism and it's an organization. Like this is how it works. And, look, right now we're in the middle of $125,000 upfit. At the same time, we're scheduling baptisms for people. So I'm worried about both the flooring that's going in and when baptisms are going to happen. I want Easter to be a success. I also want the drapes and the doors to be ready. So it's both and I hear you. It is hard to watch sometimes. And listen, you're talking to a guy who has been part of the problem before. Like, you're talking to a guy who absolutely leaned into the business side sometimes too much, or leaned into the non-business side too much, and then you're not handling finances well, or you're not handling your time well. So, I get it. It can be hard to watch, just like, a bad restaurant isn't fun to eat at, but this is life. This is how it works. And this is why we challenge leaders to make sure, like, hey, how are you leading, and what are your focus?
Yeah, you might relate to this comment. As someone who formerly attended and volunteered at Elevation, I can tell you I couldn't stand the hype and overproduction. It felt like a performance and not worship.
Yeah. And I get that. And Elevation gets, I saw so many good things there, saw so many things that, I'm running away from when it comes to here. They're really sold out to, like, the we are who we are, the branding, the 5 senses, right? We want you to have a mint. We want it to smell like this. We want it to look like this. We want it to feel like this. We want you to be able to touch this, we taste this.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big, it's a big deal. And hey, they're sold out to it, and they are incredible at what they do.
Right.
The challenge of also the comment that they're saying, I couldn't stand the hype. The challenge is they're so good at what they do that then you have people trying to chase that, and they think that's the way, like, that what I'm seeing equals growth. And the other thing, and just I don't want to bash Elevation too much here. The backstory, though, and I will say this from working there, the good thing about them is they do have a why behind everything. They do have a purpose. Now, would I agree with all of it? Not all of it, but they did put the work in.
Yeah.
They did come to a decision. It wasn't, I've never seen a decision made there on that kind of scale that's just like flip it and let's do it because we can. They really do put a lot of thought into everything.
Yeah. This comment's interesting. So my old church had many directors of ministries, but not enough people in them. It was top heavy. It looked successful on the outside, but was spiritually shallow. And I think that's interesting. So a lot of leaders, not enough volunteers. And I think
Yeah.
there's two ways this goes. Is one is that you're constantly trying to find volunteers. And so you have to scale things down just because you don't have
Hmm.
people serving, but you might have the numbers and that people aren't actually serving. Like we've had that call at our church before. Like there's no reason a church of our size should not have people volunteering in the kids wing, right? So sometimes we have to just be like, hey, if you put your kids in there, you're going to have to serve once a month. Like that's going to be a requirement because we're not your babysitters and you're also not serving in this church anywhere else. That's
Yeah.
a problem. And so the other side of this too is that sometimes you have like campus churches that have like very few leaders and a lot of
Right.
volunteers. And so they
Right.
make no decisions. Like I talked to one person where the Global Leadership Summit was at a few years ago, and he was a campus pastor. And he's like, I never preach. I don't make any spiritual decisions. I'm basically a door greeter. And I was talking to him about things happening in our church and guys were just activated to go evangelize and miracles we're
Yeah.
seeing and healings. And he's like, wow, that's like the book of Acts. I'm like, yeah, man. Like,
Yes,
and I
sir.
could just tell like his longing for something more was there.
Right.
And it just
Yeah.
broke my heart because like you're stuck in this model of like, and this was, campus pastor, meaning they have one pastor over like, I don't know, 8 to 10 campuses who preaches and everyone watches this one
Right.
person. Every other pastor in the campus has no like ability to like make decisions or disrupt the
Yeah.
model because it's a model that has worked. And so you're just there to look pretty and
Hmm.
serve the higher plan.
Yeah. And there's no ownership in that. And when there's no ownership, people, I mean, people don't care,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, one of the things that we had to get to as a church, we've been in so many different phases already. When you start with 37 people and now you're looking at, the potential of seeing 300 this Easter, that's quick growth. So there's a lot to manage there. When that's happening, there's going to be different seasons of leadership. So when you have 37 people, guess what all your elders are doing? Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what all your staff is doing? Everything.
Yeah.
You're everything. You're doing it all. You get a little bigger. Now it's that whole concept of sometimes you lead behind people, sometimes you lead in front of people, sometimes you lead beside them. And so you get a little bigger and it's like, hey, I'm going to start leading beside you. I'm going to bring people with me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and now we're in a season where we lead from out front. So it used to be, hey, if the elders don't do their job on Sunday mornings, we're not going to be able to have church. Then
Mm-hmm.
it was, if the elders don't invite people in on these opportunities to serve, we're not going to be able to have church. Now it's, elders, your job is to get there early so that you can minister to all the people that are setting up church.
Right.
So there's a progression. There's a progression. So if you have everybody running around, and here's the thing, I can always tell how prepared your church is, and I can always tell how prepared your ministry is by how freed up you are in conversation the morning of, the evening of, the day of. So if I come to a youth ministry gathering or a kids gathering and I'm dropping off my kid or I'm going to, whatever, and I can't even get you in conversation because you're going, oh, yeah, let me go sit at the table, or, oh, those go over there and I'll be right back. Like, you're not prepared.
Right.
You're just not ready for me.
Yeah.
You're just not ready. So that's one thing you got to be able to pass ownership over to so that you can be freed up to do ministry.
Exactly. Two more comments on kids ministry. This one is one of my favorite comments. People will invent any volunteer position they can so they don't have to work in preschool children's ministry.
Dude, factual.
Uh,
Factual.
oh my goodness. And then someone says, anyone else have a full security team, door opening team, parking lot team, and coffee crew, but no one for the 4-year-olds? Just wondering.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
I
is,
hear that.
you're not alone. You're not alone. That's a common thing is that the
That's
kids.
where wouldn't you want a leader that goes, hey, we're no longer doing parking lot team because we don't have enough in the 4-year-olds?
Yeah.
Like what,
For sure.
and think about kids ministry, all your volunteers in there are there. They'll die for you at that point. They'll
And
be like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
our pastor has our back. Like,
And they're probably getting burned out. And you show up to church
Yep.
thinking like, oh, they got it covered. There's people in the rooms. You don't know that someone called out and someone had to come in and they can no longer be in service. This was their week
Yep.
off. You don't know that someone's like served 8-12 weeks straight, looking for some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. And these people have like, praise God for our children's volunteers. Like they have a passion for what they're doing, but they also need to be protected and they need to have a schedule and a routine that works for them and not just for your church because no one else is stepping up.
Yeah, they need to be able to sit in the message. They need to be able
They
to
do.
sit under worship and scripture. Otherwise, they're not going to know anything. So that's what happens in these volunteer problems. Like, you got people out in the parking lot that stay out in the parking lot while the service is happening because there's nobody else there to volunteer to do it. So they do that both services. So they don't get to worship, or they stay.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start preferring that, and that becomes their church. So you've got these little Sunday schools that are sectored off, and you got kids ministry that doesn't get to sit there. And then you wonder why nobody knows the announcements. Nobody knows what's going on in your church. Nobody's passionate about the vision. Nobody's on the same page. It's because you haven't unified anybody. You're just trying to do church. Man, I'd rather have babies crying in the middle of the sermon and people in the sermon than off to the baby room you go for 5 weeks and never sit under the word of God. That's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. These comments are about the parking lot team can be a ministry and first impressions matter. You have a parking lot team to be a smile, welcoming presence the moment someone drives onto the property. It matters. This is funny. We're talking about Easter in our staff meeting this week, and I brought up like, okay, who's going to do parking lot? And everyone had seen the clip, and they're like, really? You're going to push for parking lot? It's like, well, you guys didn't listen to the clip either, because we're over 100 people.
Definitely.
Someone said, stats prove 60% of people decide if they're coming back before they hit the front door. Your parking team may make the difference. I told this person 75% of stats that are shared in the comments are made up.
That's right.
Who knows where that came
from. So here's the deal. What stat are you referring to? Because depending on what stat, people decide on the church within the first 7 minutes, within the first 5 minutes, within the first 3 minutes, within the first 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Then and here's all that means. All that means is it's not the worship music, it's not the pastor, it's the people. Yeah. Like, how welcome do you feel? How loved do you feel? But also in those stats, authenticity is the leading, that's the leading metric.
Right.
A church that is authentic, full of real people, wins. So I'm not saying your parking lot team should go sit this one out. Yeah. What I'm saying is, if you do it and you do it really well, great. You found something valuable at your church that people can do and be part of. Be authentic, serve your tail off, and be a valuable asset to the church. If that parking lot team, and if your church is low in attendance, is at the detriment of other things being done well at your church, it doesn't need to be a priority. So I hear you on the front lines, but I'll tell you this. I've been to a lot of restaurants where parking sucked, where I had to walk in the rain. Mm-hmm. But if I get a filet that's bacon wrapped and it's cooked at medium and it's really good, I'll be back.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be back.
That's the thing. I get first impressions. Someone commented on that as well. You have 8 minutes to engage them before they form their opinions. But again, so on one side of it, I love doing.
Your pastor told him that metric, by the way.
Yeah. Again,
I'll put my mortgage on. They didn't read that metric, but some leader told them that metric.
Yeah. 100%. I love doing plan your visits. I've talked about that before. You engage with someone before they walk on your campus. You have a nice text, answer any questions. They have at least some perspective when they come on site, because if no one invited them and they're walking into a church full of strangers, that's very intimidating. I get that. The other side of it is that we live in this culture where there's so many churches that you can literally bail out on a church after 8 minutes of not liking it, and then move on because you have another option. Right. And that's the danger too of church shopping, is all right, I have this checklist. I even saw one time someone posted 20 things to look for in a new church. And they basically were saying if all your needs are not met, then don't go there. And it was man, really?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? Old days, you had one church in the town, you went there, it's just crazy how much you have with options, right? You see that in our fast food, our so many things you can get right to your door. Church is becoming the same way. And if I don't want to go to your church, I'll just watch online forever and call myself being in the body. And we fight for the church. We fight for being a part of the body, using your gifts. That's what we've talked about many times on this podcast. And if you are just a lone wolf Christian, you're not fulfilling your purpose as a disciple of God, because you have gifts that people need and they can't see them if you're cooped up and not part of a body.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, I can't get behind the fact that you say you love Jesus, but don't love something he loves. I can't get behind you saying you love God, but you don't have a heart for the thing he has a heart for. So the whole I'm a Christian, but I don't go to church. I don't buy it. Like, I don't buy that you are in love and value Jesus, but you don't value what he talks about, gave his life for, values, left. This is the bride of Christ. So I love Christ. I don't love his bride. That's really a tough sell. That's really a tough sell.
And delusionment can come in, and these comments allude to that. So these are a few of the reasons I don't go anymore. It's also fake. Everyone performing, and no one is real. And that's tough, like, I get it. Maybe you were in the wrong church. I don't know the situation, but also don't give up just because there's a bad egg out there, like, or what you've read online about fallen pastors. Like, all that stuff is going to happen because we are sinful people that are not submitted to God. Again, our point is being so connected to God that you're spiritually mature and thriving, so that you can do ministry, because ministry will drain you in a heartbeat if you're not connected to the source, connected to the vine, and trying to do it on your own strength. You will have failure, not just in ministry, but in life, if you're not connected to the source of our life. Someone said, my husband pastors a small church. We went to a mega church one weekend, and it felt like a ride at Disney. Lights, lines, announcements, transitions. It was exhausting. Yep, I get that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Disney's consulted for a lot of churches.
Yeah. And then common themes on what's biblical versus what's trendy. Why are you guys so worried about copy-paste church formulas? If it works for one church, great. If not, don't use it. Isn't that what we're saying?
I think that's what we were saying.
Aren't we saying, like, if it doesn't work for your church, don't do it? Don't just do it because it's copy-paste?
I think that was the goal.
Someone had to say it. Churches aren't supposed to all be the same. The Holy Spirit is creative, not repetitive.
There we go.
Like that one.
Yeah, we did have some, like, we had some comments that, like, people were like, hey, finally somebody said this.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, like, you're okay, cool. I mean, you had to dig through some comments to get there, but they were there.
Someone said churches have play-by-play men now. Announcers, what's next? Instant replays of sermons?
Yeah.
In the middle of it talking, like, oh, did you just hear that? Let's replay it.
Oh, Lord. Listen.
Let's not give them ideas.
When you said that the play-by-play announcers and the host was cringe, and just for the record, I've never used the word cringe before, but I used it twice on this episode.
People did not think that grown men should use the word cringe. So
we probably shouldn't. We probably should stop. I'm 38, man. I think I'm too old for this. I think I'm too old for those words. I want to sound old.
But it's not like, drip and riz. Like, it's not that word. Like, those need time to cook. Cringe has been around for at least, 20 plus years? Like, I think.
Yeah, but I still say things like, that's dope. And kids look at me like, what are you saying? And
radical.
Like, radical. It's rad, right?
How long does it have to be in vernacular?
Shout out Rad Church. Shout out Rad Church.
Rad Church. Shout out. How long does it have to be in vernacular for grown men to use it? That's what I want to know. Like,
yeah,
I'm not going to use cringe a lot, but
I just try to on Youth Takeover Sundays. I try to throw like one of those kinds of words in the message, and then I look at all of them and just crack up laughing. Like,
they're
I'm like, see, it sounds dumb, doesn't it? And then I move on.
See, you're cringing now. So.
That's right. Okay, so play-by-play announcers. So we're not going to go with that. I don't know. It might be something we want to break out at Easter at Yes Church. Who knows?
Hey, the sermon clips I post online could be considered instant replays, But,
that's all they are, man. That's all. I mean, the sermon clips, it's hey, here's the best part of It was, man.
Someone said, I'm trying to picture what the assembly of God looked like in the book of Acts, and it didn't include traffic cones or lobby hosts. True. And that's also tricky because, you know what? Acts didn't include social media. It didn't include TV. It didn't include microphones.
It didn't include this kind of access. It didn't include coffee shops, but, It
didn't include an actual Bible that we have today. Think about that. So you got to be careful.
Right there.
Yeah. So you got to be careful of trying to compare completely to the book of Acts, considering the context of what they were in and what we have access to now, and then using that access for good, using it to grow the kingdom. But there's so many people are like, well, they didn't have this back then. It's like, there's a lot of stuff, man. Yeah. That doesn't mean we don't use any of it. So this theme was on church leaders must seek God's vision. Amen. If the church was full of the presence of God in a praying church, they wouldn't need production and parking lot fanfare to draw people in. Possibly, Yeah. There also needs to be wisdom and discernment in what we call ministry. Just because someone wants to serve doesn't mean every job is necessary.
Yes. That right there, that comment right there is everything that our entire episode was about. It took almost 100,000 views for someone to say that.
Yeah.
So there's a less than 1%. Got it.
And I want to end on my favorite comment, which was, and I don't have it pulled up, but it was something to the tune of like, this is wild. I'm a missionary in these 3 countries and we don't have this at all.
Right.
And I actually duetted that on TikTok just because I was like, this is what we're talking about. Like we get so desensitized to being in America. This is all we know. And so if you dare challenge it, then people speak up because it's what you know, it's what you've done, but it's not what everyone does. People that are fearful of their life, people that don't have a fancy building, they barely have a building. And yet you get 50 people in there that are worshiping God. And in many of these countries, like just go be a missionary, go travel, go look at what's happening, get the Voice of the Martyrs ministry to see like what's actually happening and people that are dying for their faith, to see that LED lights, parking lot ministries, lights, camera, action, so unique to us. And what that does is it desensitizes us to the presence of God, because it's all about what's happening and what's like engaging our senses, but not our spiritual senses. Again, going back to the point of why do we do what we do? How can we get back to the presence of God first? And from that flows when we're connected to the source.
And essentially this episode and this reel that we sent out and this clip that we sent out, it did exactly what we wanted it to do, in that it made you have an opinion. It made you think through it. It made you at least contemplate if you need one. And so if you looked at the clip and you were like, nah, not our parking lot team, we got the best one. Great. Then we did our job. I hope you have the best next couple weeks. I hope you have the best Easter. I hope you have the best Sunday you could possibly have. If you saw it and you were like, man, that's a good point. Like, do we need one? And it challenged your thinking and how you see ministry. Awesome. Did exactly what it needed to do. So the opinions, don't worry. I don't take it personal. I actually don't read a majority of them. I let Tim handle all that stuff, but he sends me the best ones. But it's, whenever we speak on things like this, we want it to provoke thought. And, it's the same way when I preach on Sundays. I preach in a way that there are moments I want to agitate you a little bit. Because you need to figure this out. Like leader, you need to figure this out. And even if you're just a volunteer at the church and you're like, oh, well, this is where I serve. Cool. But like, broaden your scope a little bit and let's just see like what needs to happen there and what the focus is. Cause I'll tell you, man, like if I'm dropping off my 2 kids into kids ministry and you don't have enough volunteers to handle my kids, but you parked my car really well, that's not going to work for me. That church isn't going to work for me. So I'm really thankful for all the comments, really thankful for all the shares. I mean, I don't know. I think it was Instagram, like 350 something shares, like TikTok, those numbers are out of this world. And we'll probably see 100K views there, but really thankful for all the time everybody put in and all the shares and all the comments and all the opinions, and appreciate the engagement. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of context, probably lets you see that we're a little more aligned than you probably thought. But again, social media, right? Like as soon as we get on there, we're just like, what don't I like? And how can I prove my point back? So totally get that.
We realize that people that made these comments are not going to listen to this, more than likely. So, help us share, like this podcast, get the word out. We want people to hear full context of our episodes and not just the clips. The clips hopefully will drive people to learn about this podcast. And because our goal in these full-length episodes is to help you keep your eyes on Jesus, both in ministry and in your personal life. So that's our heart. And if you've followed us for a while, you know us, our heart, that we don't bash on the church, but that we don't hate the church. We love the church. We love the bride of Christ. We're serving. And so anyway, just help us get the word out. Send us your questions, comments, join the podcast community on Facebook, the Eyes on Jesus podcast community. You can join that group. And again, help support the show. Go to kingdomandwill.com, use the code Eyes on Jesus for 15% off. Any dollars that come back from that just help us pay for StreamYard, which we use. We use a Descript. It's about $100 a month from the services we use just to keep this podcast going. So we appreciate any support with that. If you'd like to support the show monetarily as well, send us an email. We'd appreciate that as well to help cover our costs. But we do this because we love it, and we appreciate you watching and listening. And until next time, go with God, grow in discernment, and keep your eyes on Jesus.
Thanks for joining us on the Eyes on Jesus podcast with Drew and Tim. Don't forget to hit subscribe.